So we're going to be talking about insurance marketing 101, which is a great topic because I honestly don't know anything about insurance marketing, and I kind of kept it that way for purposes of this webinar. So before we get started and dive in, just want to have the other panelists introduce themselves. Mike, I see you first. So could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Fusco. I am the co-founder and CEO of Fusco Orsini and Associates. We're headquartered in San Diego, California. And we have a heavy emphasis on commercial lines and employee benefits, risk management, loss prevention. So nice to meet you all.
Thanks for joining us. Melanie, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Melanie Johnson. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Levitt Group. So we have about 170 locations across the US, and we help those locations with their marketing. We also have a digital agency that we get to do some fun work with as well. So get to work in both those areas.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. And Stephanie?
Hey, everyone. I'm Stephanie Altman. I'm the Director of Marketing for Bold Penguin. So I lead our marketing team internally. Really excited to be here today to meet all of you and to learn a little bit from my fellow panelists as well.
Awesome. So thanks for joining today. So we're going to be going over marketing 101 for agencies. So I kind of created this like persona for purposes of today, and I'm going to do a Peter Parker Spider-Man thing for a second. So I'm going to change my hair, right? I had preppy hair. So like, this is my kind of gamer hair. So I am a dude that wants to start an insurance agency for gamers, whether it's people that play video games, sell video games, make video games. I just love video games. And so hang on, I got to put on my hoodie. I'm going to put on my hoodie so that I don't look like the preppy person with golf pictures in the background. All right. Should I go hood, Stephanie? I can't decide.
But now you're kind of almost crossing into like Darth Vader territory.
Darth Vader, but
maybe
no
maybe
hood?
that's I think
Okay.
no hood. You got more of the.
No, but I got to keep the hair non-preppy. Like I just got done with like 12 hours of video games and pizza, which would be amazing.
Let it not be said Chris doesn't commit to the bit, right? Like,
Yes, absolutely,
Right.
100%.
I commend you.
Where's
Yeah.
your gamer chair, Chris?
I'm sitting in it, maybe. No, it's in down the hall. So the premise here is I want to start an insurance agency, and I really want to focus on the gaming industry, right? And so I passed whatever I need to pass to be an insurance agent. And I'm like trying to figure out where to get started on the marketing side, because I do know that like finding customers is really important. So Mike, I'm going to start with you. Like, where would you start?
Man, that's a great question. No, I would start by figuring out where my audience is. So where do gamers live? Like, where do they talk? Where do they communicate? Where do they visit? And I think for gamers, actually, Chris, you bring up I think it's a great example, because I think you can find gamers on lots of different platforms, right? I mean, I would think gamers, like to be on maybe not Facebook as much, but maybe, they like to go on YouTube. They love to be on TikTok. I would think they'd like to make little short videos, streaming when they're online. They like to stream their games to others. So I would find out really where they're spending their time.
Okay.
And that's where I would focus my efforts on marketing to gamers and attracting them to let them know that, hey, we're here and we're ready to help you with your gaming business.
Awesome. Okay. And I really think that like people buying and selling video games, it's like this booming industry, right? Especially on the eBay and Amazon and all those places. And these are actual businesses, and I think they need insurance. So Melanie, I'm going to turn to you. Like, knowing that that's kind of the target to start, what do you think? Where would you go? What would you do?
So I loved everything Mike said. I would also, you obviously have some gamer friends, some maybe business owners you already know, some existing customers. I would absolutely interview them and ask them and verify my assumptions on where I think they're at, just to make sure that I've got it right. And I would also ask them what it is they're worried about with their insurance. Like, it's a little cliche when we say what keeps you up at night, but you really have to like nail that and understand that, because that's going to form your messaging out to that group. You're going to be able to say something that they're like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. I need to I need to call that guy and make sure I'm protected for that. So I would do those two things. And I would also, just from a, like, it's great to pick, like, hey, I want to do gamers, for example, but I would also make sure that I've evaluated that opportunity to make sure it really is a fit for my goals and what I'm trying to do from a marketing standpoint. So for example, I would try to find out right away, what is the account size average of these things? Like, how much commission am I going to make off each sale? If it's a really small amount, it's easy business, maybe I need to send that to a rater, versus these are larger, complex accounts. They have some very unique risks. Maybe I need to make sure I have a program or a product that can actually serve their needs. And it will also affect how much you can spend on your marketing, right? Because if your cost of acquisition is a little bit higher on this and the commission's not covering that cost, then those are all things to consider before you're diving into your actual marketing strategy and figuring out what tactics you can plug in there to be successful.
Okay.
Chris, can I jump
I
on
like your
something that Melanie
advice.
said there? Because I think one thing that we forget, especially when we're looking at digital advertising and looking at that, like a cost per click or cost per impression models and things like that, it's really easy to get caught up in just those numbers and forgetting about the value of your time as well. Because your time is part of that cost per acquisition or that cost per impression. And to Melanie's point, if the commissions are going to be really, really small, you might actually be in like a net loss situation when you account for all of the time that you're putting into developing that strategy, developing those ads, and then paying for them.
I agree with that 100%. As we experiment with some of these things, some of our biggest challenge is not so much the technology cost, it's the human resource cost. So the other question, to piggyback off that comment, the other question when you're interviewing those gamers is you need to find out what level of advisement they expect. Do they need a lot of hand holding? Is it a long sales cycle? Or is it very transactional, easy, short sales cycle? I can, do a consumer directed journey with some digital tools and eliminate some of that HR cost. That's such a great point, Steph.
Okay, so I hear everyone saying I need to go talk to my potential customers, but there's like one problem here in that I'm a gamer and I don't like to talk to people. So can't I just go buy Facebook ads or like Google AdWords or whatever? I know the tech stuff that takes me like 10 seconds. Like that's how, that's how people do things. I thought like you just throw up an ad and people will come. So Mike, do you have any thoughts on that? Can I just throw up a Facebook ad?
No.
Oh.
No, I think that, when I look at how I'm going to market to a certain niche or a certain industry, it has to be holistic, right? It has to be from various different positions or various different angles. I think just throwing up a Facebook ad and expecting that to bring people to your product or to gain opportunities from a Facebook ad, you're limiting your ability, to reach your audience, right? You're limiting, that's just one channel. There's so many different channels. There's so many different ways that you can market your business, market your agency. And I think that, like you said, gamers, they might not be as willing to pick up a phone and call. So, you may want to think about, what channels are you trying to communicate through your target audience? But I think just relying on one source or one platform you're going to wind up probably being let down, right? You're going to fall short. Now, I think Facebook is a platform that most people, I think a lot of businesses use it to reach their target audience. I think it's a great platform, obviously. Not as expensive as Google Ads. I think you spoke about Google Ads before, Melanie. I think you might have mentioned it, but Google Ads, and in our marketplace, it's one of the most competitive. The keywords for insurance are, they're expensive, so you're going to be competing. But I think it's a good place to be on Facebook. I think that's one of the places you should think about, but I don't think it's an end all to make sure you're getting the opportunities that you want.
So you can go into some of these platforms, like let's say you set up you're not running an ad, but you pretend like you're gonna run an ad. You go in, set it up, and you can see exactly what targeting options are in these platforms like Facebook. So you can get a real good idea if your target audience is on that platform and how many of them are on that platform. Because another thing you have to consider with this is you're trying to fill the top of your funnel. And then every stage in that sales process, you're going to have people drop off. So by the time you get to actual sold policies, you're here, even though you started here. So you want to make sure, like on Facebook, for example, to your point, Mike, it's like if you go in there and there's only like this many people on Facebook, and then you're like going to the bottom of your funnel, you're not going to end up with a lot of sold policies there. But you have to go in and you have to try it. So one of the big things in marketing is experimentation. You want to learn everything you can beforehand, do that market research, because the more you know going into it, the more successful you're going to be. But once you get in there, sometimes you just have to try it and see. You have to try it and see what's working and what your conversion rates are and if it's profitable or not, or where to adjust. So that's a big piece of it too on any of these platforms, is to be willing to experiment.
Yeah. And you have to have a little fun with it too.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always tell my team is like, set up everything as a test and learn. And if something falls flat, like that's okay. You have a data point, not to spend any of your money, time, resources on that again. Like that's not where you are. And the other thing that, kind of leading into what both Mike and Melanie were saying, is that when you hit a platform or a channel or even an audience segment, as you're going through and using the various filtering tools, lookalike audiences that you can do on almost every platform. It's not just what Meta's doing, but LinkedIn has it, TikTok has it. I mean, you really want to get like nerdy and gamery, I think you can do some advertising on Twitch even, where you can really focus in on some of that. But you're going to find rain in the desert at the beginning. And then once you start to sell to some of those people, you're not necessarily backfilling with the same volume, because it is a very specific audience that you're looking for. So kind of going back to what Mike was saying, you can't look at it as single channel. You might kind of capture your audience in a single channel and continue to engage with them there, but you're going to have to think about where you can expand out, and whether that's kind of growing your scope, back to what Melanie said earlier, or growing the scope of your channels. Kind of going back to what Mike was saying, you really have to think about marketing can't be static, even if it is to a fairly static audience.
Okay, so Steph, you gave me an idea, and this is for you or anyone else that have used these platforms. Like I heard you mention Twitch, and I watch Twitch probably 20 hours a day. Just it's amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also talk to my gamer friends in Discord when we're playing video games, and so there's all these new software applications that I'm starting to use and gamers are starting to use. And I'm sure there's other industries starting to use other stuff because everything's kind of splintering off. Like, how do you engage with those when you're trying to sell insurance? Should I just go in there and be like, hey, who wants to buy insurance for reselling video games? Like, is that going to work? Or like what do you do? How do you engage in those kind of platforms?
Actually, I think that'd be hilarious.
I would watch that. But this is something that I don't think I would have said even 2, maybe 3 years ago, and this just shows how quickly digital advertising is moving. But I would say you're looking for a very specific audience in a micro niche. Consider influencer marketing. And that's not, and that's not something that necessarily has to be like you're paying a celebrity to, hawk your water. A small, again, a micro niche, someone who is known within a specific community who can help lend you credibility, may be less money than you might think it would be to start. And you're automatically establishing credibility. Even if they say it's SponCon, sponsored content, there are people for whom, like, if they make it clear, as part of their persona, I only, accept sponsorships from things that I believe in or people that I trust. Influencer marketing might make sense here. The other thing to do is to look out for those gaming webcasts, podcasts, and send a note. Suggest yourself as a guest. Suggest someone you know as a guest. The worst thing anyone can say is no. you might pique their interest and they might come back to you later, or they might tell someone else about you, or they'll make fun of you on their thing about like, oh my gosh, this crazy insurance guy. And as you're starting out, all press is good press, I think.
Has anyone seen, I'm really interested because I could get a gamer to talk about insurance maybe, right? Never thought about that. Has anyone seen commercial insurance through an influencer before? I'm curious, like that, because I'm starting to see it on the personal insurance side where, you get someone to do a cameo talking about insurance or something. Has anyone seen that on the commercial insurance side? It's really interesting.
I have sort of. I'm starting to see for especially, I don't know if I should say names here, but especially for contractors, there's an insurance company that is doing a ton of influencer marketing. So it's their ads, they're paying for it, but they're getting all of these different contractors who are YouTube famous, who I like a good weekend DIY project. So I actually watch some of them, right? And I like recognize them, and they're on I get targeted for commercial insurance. That shouldn't be a surprise because I'm, so anyway, I see them all. So I do see it happening with them and with others on insurance.
I think I know that. I know exactly what company you're talking about.
Yeah, you probably do.
Yeah. And I think influencer, it doesn't have like what we think of influencers. We think of like Instagram and people that have huge followings. And like Melanie said, I mean, there are people within each industry that are famous within that industry. I mean, we have them in our industry, right? But I think even like influencers that might not be known as influencers, like you think about Facebook groups, for example, if you can get into a Facebook group with an audience that you want to target and just become, conversational in that group, become known in that group. And there are people in the insurance business that I know very well that have done a really good job, becoming known in those types of groups, and then have other people that are in the industry, speak about them and their product and their service, and it helps them, grow within that industry. So, influencers at any different level. It doesn't have to be like someone you think who has, 30 million YouTube followers, which maybe some of these people do. I don't know, Melanie, but
I don't know.
who knows?
Okay.
You do a good job.
Those are some great ideas. I love that influencer idea. I actually saw the ads you all are referencing. I had no idea who those people were because I don't watch do-it-yourself TV. And so I was like, all right, those are random. So thank you for that. What about my website, right? And particularly like blogging was like a big thing in the past, right? But like, is it still relevant? And then like podcasts too. Mike, I saw you have a podcast that would like to know more about, but like, is it too late for podcasts? So, I mean, and do I talk about insurance, or do I talk about like gaming, or do I talk about like getting hurt while you're gaming? I don't even know. So like, where do I go with like my website and blogging and podcasting and all that? Mike, I'll start with you since I saw your podcast.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing I want to talk about is the content marketing. You talked about blogging. I think is crucial. And I think if you guys have kept up with Google, their recent updates on, the way they're bringing people to your site, or it's more now about content that can help those people searching for those keywords or searching for what they're looking for. So, in my opinion, we try to blog constantly, consistently putting new content out. It can only help. We try to attach videos to all of our blogs because we think, video blogging is super important to get people, to stay and to read. I don't know if people like to read as much. You talk about kind of the old blogs about super text and wordy and whatever. I think there's a new style to that about how people, gather information or read through information on the internet. But I think you have to captivate them once they're there. And I think a video and a blog that's easy to read is just as important as it ever has been, if not more important. And then podcasting. To me, podcasting, I started my podcast as a way to connect with my customers, to strengthen the relationship with my customers, and to also gain traction and to put out more content to small business owners, because that's what we target. We work with small business owners, right? So I started a podcast that's related to entrepreneurship, small business, and it's helped me really, gain a lot of traction in that area. But to your question, I wouldn't talk at all about insurance. I mean, there are podcasters that are insurance related podcasters, but they have a business within the insurance industry. You know, they're not out looking for new customers. They're looking for customers within the insurance segment. So if I were going to start a podcast to try to attract gamers, I would talk about gaming, right? I would try to bring gamers on. I would try to, get into the gaming niche and attract people that are in the gaming community. That's just my opinion. I don't think there's any right or wrong, honestly. I think putting yourself out there is the first step. Doing something a little different, a little outside the box, trying it out, seeing how it works. And honestly, podcasting is fun. And it changes the everyday, day-to-day stuff that we do in insurance. So I like it for that reason, but I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to how you can podcast.
Okay. Steph, I'm going to go to you because I've heard you talk about measuring as well. So like, how do you
Yeah.
measure the return on like a podcast or a blog or all that stuff? And then if you have other thoughts on if I should actually do it, I'd be very curious.
Yeah, so I would say I agree with Mike. I think the answer to kind of everything you were suggesting is yes. It's just kind of a matter of how. So it's really easy to get your site set up with free tools like Google Analytics, where you can track people's paths to your site and through your site. It's free and you get a ton of data, and there's no reason not to, really. And Chris has heard me say kind of 100 times, like I'm kind of obsessed with measuring everything. My favorite acronym is ROMI. It's Return on Marketing Investments. So like, what am I getting back for the effort of money I'm putting into it? And content is actually a really easy way to start getting some of that data, because you can see what people are reacting to by how they enter your site, or when they go there, what they click on first. And to kind of piggyback on what Mike was saying, the key with content is consistency. If you can only commit to once a week of putting something out there, then do it once a week. Do it every Wednesday at 9 a.m. or whatever it might be for you. As you start to scale up and you have more of that time, you can kind of flex in, but that consistency is really key at the beginning as you build that library that will help Google go and index your site and see what it's about. Now, even as they change their algorithms, if you maintain that consistency and maintain that focus on a few specific topics, it's not going to hurt you in their rankings as they change it. The only thing that I will say with that is don't sleep on Bing. Like, there are actually a larger number of people than you would think that are still using that as their search engine. And in some cases, you can see, it's up to like 5-7% of some users, and you can actually see some different returns there than with Google. So just think about making sure that you're indexed there as well. Now for measurement, for podcasts, there's the listens, just straight up. There's the amount of time people spend. Do they listen to your entire podcast? You can track your subscribers. But when you track subscribers, also track listens. I will be the first to admit that I have podcasts in my feed that are stacking up. I'm subscribed, but I'm not necessarily engaging with them. So anytime you want to kind of do a straight, I'll say like a straight sign up metric, whether it's a view or a subscription or anything like that, make sure you're looking at the engagement metric as well, because you might bring a lot of people, to your front door, but no one wants to walk inside.
Okay, I like that. I'll have to use that line because it sounds super smart. All right, Melanie. I saw that you all have at Levitt, you all have a blog. I think it's called Learning Labs, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So,
do.
so tell me about that, or the thought process behind that. Like, because I'm still not sure I'm totally convinced that I should do a blog on our website.
Yeah, Learning Labs is what we call it for our digital agency, but it's feeding in from our main blog. And we do a lot of content. We try to get as much bang for our buck as we can out of everything that we put the effort into writing. So we have other campaigns that we're running that basically use that content that's unique to us. So for example, we do a ton of marketing automation, via email and things like that. So if we're trying to send out nurture campaigns, like let's say we're sending cool information out to gamers, once a month or even once a quarter or whatever it is, anything we do for that, we're going to also leverage on the blog. it does give you some interesting data, because as you start building up a library of content, you'll start to see, like Steph was saying, in those Google Analytics metrics, you can start to see what is getting a lot of traffic. And once you see like, oh man, everybody wants to know the difference between owned and non-owned on vehicles, for example, then you can go into that article. You can build out other articles associated with it, and you can convert that article essentially into a sales funnel where you make sure you've got a super strong call to action, and maybe start creating some leads off of that content that you're doing. So our strategy is kind of twofold, and I know it takes a lot of work to do content, so we want to make sure that we're leveraging it wherever we can. We also will link social posts and stuff like that. We'll often try to figure out how do we link it back over to there to drive traffic. So those are some ideas. I'll also note, like, if you're a little short on resources, carriers actually have some really great content that they are totally willing to share. In terms of duplicate content, you can sometimes take what they have, tweak it a little bit, try to make it a little bit more unique, put your own photo on it or whatever, and use that if you're just trying to get going with it, but maybe don't have like full-time staff dedicated to that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just sitting here thinking about, like, I like to play video games, and you're talking about stuff that's going to take away from that. So like, what about ghostwriters? Can I just hire some ghostwriter to write, articles about insurance and gaming? Yeah, Melanie, I see you're shaking your head.
Yeah, we actually have one of our agencies hires ghostwriters, and they've used that for their content strategy before because they didn't have the time. So they just paid somebody, and it was for something that was very much a sales focused funnel. It wasn't just purely educational. It was like, hey, we know people are coming to this. I think it was an association website, and we have the opportunity to put 2 pieces of content on there a week. So I'm just going to hire a ghostwriter, have them write the content, so that we're filling that funnel, and as traffic comes to that association website, they're going to come back to the agency. So again, it's all just like tying it back to a strategy too. If you don't have like a mechanism to get a return on it, maybe it's not worth doing quite yet until you have it as part of a strategy where you know what your goal is and what you're trying to achieve by putting that work in.
Okay.
One thing I have to say with the ghostwriters and kind of what Melanie was saying is, as you think about your broader content strategy, and that's one over time. You can't just like jump into content. Like Mike was saying, kind of started the podcast was one thing, and it grew. It's thinking about what your persona is and making sure you're making that really clear to any external agency that you would hire. Because otherwise, as things go on, as people start to spend more time engaging with you, you want to create a somewhat seamless experience, so that way it doesn't sound like, agency A wrote this and agency B wrote this, and maybe Gamer Chris wrote this, but it sounds different than what agency A wrote again. So just kind of taking that time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, and especially if you are really interested and invested in the niche that you're selling to, it's easy to kind of explain who you are and how you want it to sound. So it's worth putting a little bit of time in with anyone that you would hire, just to make sure that like you and them are on the same page with how you want to talk to your audience.
If you're putting together a brand style guide for your agency, that will help you not just in that use case, but like across the board with all your marketing. So I'm a big advocate of that as well, and would recommend that, to really think about how you look across the board. So for ours, a section of our style guide is our brand voice, which I think is what, you're talking there about, Steph. And so we'll use certain descriptors like, we're wise, we're compassionate, we're authentic, things like that, and then help create that sort of standard that we're all trying to achieve. So it's a great comment, Steph, on that.
If I can add one thing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before Chris, you go back. I will say that when you build your content, you build your library, it almost becomes like an asset to the company. So you can repurpose it, and you can reuse it for multiple different reasons. So I think that people need to realize that, like, once you build out your content, now you have all this content over years of building it out. That's what we've kind of come to now, is that, and we can repurpose it when we need it. We can use it where we want to use it. And we can even, customers that have we have in this business, I feel like you get a lot of the same questions. You can use it for that. So there's just a bunch of different ways you can use it to help the company grow.
And I would say, remember that a YouTube video is content. This doesn't have to be written. So
Yeah.
if your video gamers are all on YouTube, which a lot of them are going to be, you can do YouTube videos if that's going to be more effective. So anyway, so it again, understanding like who it is you're targeting and where they're at is really key to a good content strategy.
Okay. Excellent. Great ideas, everyone. I appreciate it. I did mean to mention we are taking questions as well. So if you want to submit those, just go for it. There is a question actually here. So I'm gonna jump to the questions. And again, submit your questions. We'd love to hear them. So this is from Joe. Joe said, all great ideas and suggestions. However, it sounds like a lot of work for an already super busy agency owner. Do you have any ideas or rather recommendations for companies that can handle all of this for an agency? So any recommendations out there? And yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, like for Bold Penguin, we use an external agency to manage our search engine optimization to try and bring people to us, because that's really the goal of all of this, right? Especially if you're using a like digitally enabled tool to help manage some of your lead funnel. And I'll put the plugin for Bold Penguin storefront right there. So if the idea is to kind of drive people to something like that, then that's what we're using an SEO agency for. You can find local agencies to you, and Joe, I'm not sure where in the country you are, or there's a number of kind of national agencies in our current world of remote work. You can interview people from across the country who might be a good fit for you. And it's not, depending on scope of work, it doesn't have to be particularly expensive either.
The other thing I would look at, again, I mentioned carriers before, I will mention them again. Carriers are such a wonderful resource, and there's a lot of companies that they have partnered with that specifically do marketing for insurance agencies. And oftentimes there's co-op dollars that you can use to leverage those partnerships. So I would get with your top carriers, especially if there's some of the national carriers, and find out what is available through their portals. And I bet that they would totally support you there.
So Melanie, real quick,
Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, okay, so yeah, I'm trying to get appointed right now by a carrier, right? And so would I just contact that person and say, hey, I'm also interested in marketing. Can you help me? Like, is it just that simple, or what do I do?
I would go to carriers that you already have volume with and are already appointed with, probably to get in on those programs. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to want to support their agencies that are bringing them business, right?
Yeah.
So, but a lot of them do it, like Melanie said. A lot of the big carriers, the nationals, they'll help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
I mean, if you're part of any local groups, there might be local small business owners who might, be willing to partner with you. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, has a ton of content on their website that if you're really thinking about small business more generally, and that's publicly available, and you can kind of take that, reswizzle that. If you're kind of just looking to get started by saying, I read this and here's what I think about it and why it matters to you. There's white papers from all the big consulting firms that you can download for free, and you can put your own hot take on it. So to kind of get started small, like 100% with Melanie here, like steal, like it steal to make it work for you.
Okay. All right. We have another question from Dennis, and Mike, this one is for you, and then we can jump to other people if they're interested in answering. So Mike, how do your agency and your producers use LinkedIn?
Yeah. Hey, Dennis, great question. We don't use LinkedIn to prospect per se. Now I have had producers here in the past that have, but we use it overall as a branding opportunity. We just we brand the agency through LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys have kind of looked at my profile, but going back to the question, I think Joe asked it right before. We hire a marketing company. She's actually, her background's in public relations, but she does all of our LinkedIn posting for us. Now, I do like to get involved on LinkedIn with colleagues in the industry. because I think it's important, you know, as independent insurance agency, you know, in our industry to kind of get connected with other people. So I'd like to use it for that. But overall, we use it for branding, you know, to get our agency name out there, to get our branding out there. And that's basically it.
Okay.
We
Melanie, yeah.
have, I'll just add, we don't have all of our producers like totally, you know, drilled into the LinkedIn scene, but we do have some who have used it really effectively for, Mike, both what you're talking about, which is just, hey, let's be connected and let's create awareness and let's, you know, kind of understand what's going on in the industry and be a participant in the community. But we have had some who do use like Sales Navigator and some of those advanced LinkedIn tools, and they will use it for prospecting and have had a lot of success with it. It's mostly, I would say, with larger commercial type accounts. I don't know how it would work for small business. Maybe it could. But the ones who have had some success with it happen to be either like running large EB or large CL. And exactly. they have been able to use those advanced tools and do some pretty good stuff in there for lead gen.
I do like to use it for my podcast, by the way. Sorry, Stephanie.
Yeah. No, please.
No, you go. I did want to say that I like to use it for, it's good for I think it's good to get your podcast out there, and a lot of your guests that I bring on the podcast, they're also on LinkedIn. So it's a good way to kind of, you know, dually market the podcast together. But anyway, sorry, Stephanie, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was going to actually, that ended up being an even better segue, because it's a way for you to, as you're getting started, when you engage with people who are well known in the industry that you're focused on, your name pops up because maybe they respond to your comment, or as you're engaging with these groups, with these insurance or gaming, you know, influencers who might be there posting their professional content. If you're there and you're present, people will start to recognize your name, and they might kind of click through to your profile and see, oh, all right, so Chris is insuring gamers. This is interesting. I'm a gamer. The warning, I guess I would give with that is, before you do that, get your profile ticked and tied. Have a nice, like, appropriate photo. If you're a gamer, maybe it is you in your gaming chair, or something like that, but have a photo that shows the professional world that you want to see. Make sure that you have a header image. You're not just doing like the LinkedIn, like blue circles, that your occupational history is up to date. Just, you know, spend 20 minutes on your profile before you start engaging with folks on there.
Okay. All right. So I'm thinking about, like, if I do some of the stuff y'all have talked about and I'm successful, I guess, Mike, I'm going to go to you with this one. Like, so people are interested, but remember, I don't like talking to people. So but they want insurance. So I somehow get them to my website. Like, can I like get them to just do everything themselves? Can they get a quote themselves? Like, where are we at with all of that stuff? Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. And I think Melanie mentioned this early on. You know, I think that's something that we use. The Bold Penguin storefront is great to drive people. You know, I think with certain industries and certain segments, certain types of companies or prospects, you can certainly drive them to a rater. In this case, we drive customers to the Bold Penguin storefront. We look at it as an opportunity, though, right? So we're trying to gather as many opportunities as we can. So when I'm driving people to something like a storefront, I still want my salespeople to be ready to gain that to connect with that person. Okay. You know, I still want them to, I look at it as an opportunity for them to connect. Now, you said that, you know, these people may not be available or like to talk on the phone, but you got to give them other ways to communicate. You know, we do a lot of communication through text messaging, through live chat, through email still. So it's not, you know, Facebook Messenger, or any way that you can, but there's got to be some way you can communicate with people. And I look at it as an opportunity for our people to outreach and to connect with that person and possibly, you know, gain some new business.
Okay, I heard you. I don't know if I like that, because it sounds like people still want to talk. So Melanie, I'm going to go to you and be like, is there any chance in the, can I just like create a, like, do you have people buy commercial insurance straight through without talking to agents, or like what's going on there? Like, that's kind of why I picked this, is I was like, I'll just buy insurance if I can buy Facebook ads and move on with my life. that possible? Where are we at with all that?
Not quite yet.
Oh.
Not quite yet, but there are certain class codes. So in my discussion with carriers that we're working with to figure out how do we make this digital customer experience as smooth and as easy as possible, there are going to be certain class codes, in the very near future where I think that we'll be able to do some bind online things for some of those small businesses. And there is some bind online now for certain things that you can do with certain carriers for specific pieces of, for very specific lines of business. Like I think there might be a work comp one where you can just go straight through and bind online. And so that's the future, is that ability. Now, is it going to be for every class code? Probably not. Like there's probably going to be some class codes where you still are going to have to talk to an agent and get some advisement just because it's the risk is more complicated. But for simple bot policies, for certain NAICS codes, I think that you will see very, very shortly that's going to become available, that you can do some bind online for some.
Okay, well, I'm crossing my fingers for gamers and bind online. All right, so we have another question and we're sort of wrapping up on time here. So I'm going to jump to the question for a moment. Thank you for attending, Anonymous. Thank you for hosting this webinar. I'm viewing this from the agency management vendor side. So in your experience, what do you think is the best way to get in front of agents looking for new agency solutions? Looks like somebody's looking for some sales advice. So social calls, emails, basically, how do you all want to get contacted for technology and trying to sell it to you?
Great.
I'll let you answer that one.
I don't know what I should say here. I may or may not have my work phone permanently on do not disturb, and I listen to voicemails because I get too many calls. Same with email. I am just like quickly scanning that, but I like cupcakes. I mean, if you send me a present, sometimes I'll take a vendor call. Mike, I don't know, what thoughts do you have?
I mean, I think social proof. I'll go with social proof on this one.
Social proof is also good. If we hear about something and it's working really well for other people and we get a referral from somebody we know and trust, yeah, it's worth looking at.
Think about Bold Penguin, for example. That's how I first got connected with Bold Penguin. Social proof. They do great things. I want to work with a company like that. So whoever you are from the vendor, social proof.
That's
Thanks a lot, Mike. Now I'm not going to get my free cupcakes.
Maybe. You never know.
All right.
And cupcakes. There's like an old marketing adage that you need to get in front of someone 7 different times before they actually remember who you are. So, I think with that, it's do a little bit of targeting on social. Maybe you send a cold email, you send some cupcakes, you get you get on a podcast and someone hears about, how great you are. So it's probably some combination of all of those things. I would start by saying SEO is in my opinion, and Mike and Millington, if I'm wrong, SEO is a better investment than SEM. Because you're going to drive more of that organic traffic and you're not going to be bidding against carriers who are way bigger than any of us, as Mike was talking about at the start of the call. But I'd say no one channel is going to be your win all, maybe with the exception of social proof.
Excellent. Okay, so I saved one last question for you all because you all are marketing geniuses, I've heard. And I still don't have a name for my video game insurance agency. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to contemplate this while I fill the air with time. I'd like to tell everyone, thank you for attending. This is going to be our last question for the day. But if you have questions afterwards, if you want to follow up on something you didn't want to ask, feel free to email me, chris.cheatham@boldpenguin.com. Despite my amazing acting abilities, I am not a gaming agency owner. And so we are going to go and figure out who is amazing at marketing right now. So Stephanie, I'm going to put you on the spot. What name do you have for my agency?
I think you're the game-gency, game-gency.
Mine was close. I'm going with Game Sure.
Ooh, I like it.
Mike?
I was trying to think of something with like Call of Duty and adding agency name in there. I don't. Isn't that a game, Chris, that you love to play?
I like
That
it.
is, yeah, like call to insurance duty. I also was just thinking about something really simple like Super Mario Insurance.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
cool.
like, what are the most popular games now, Chris? You know these things.
Fortnite is amazing.
Fortnite.
Yeah. So I can't think of anything with that.
Fort could be something good if you put Fort in there, because you're kind of protecting, serving, the protection piece.
Yeah.
you could
all
do
right.
a Super Sure Bro instead of Super Smash Bro. I happen to
Oh.
know from my teenagers that's a very popular one as well.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Okay, well, they're about to release FIFA 2023, so I'm going to go play it right now. So thanks for coming, everyone. And I appreciate it. And we'll send this out afterwards. We recorded the whole thing. So have a great week and weekend.
Okay. Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.